Here's something people rarely say out loud. When you can't stop thinking about a guy, it doesn't always mean you're imagining things. Sometimes it simply means the connection left a real impact on you, and there's a chance he's thinking about you too. I'm not talking about magic or fantasy. I'm talking about the kind of connection many people experience but struggle to explain. Before you assume this is just another feel-good story, hear me out. This isn't about giving you false hope. It's about looking at what can really happen when someone stays on your mind day after day. You know that feeling. He appears in your thoughts while you're having breakfast. You see something funny and instantly think he would laugh at this. A random song starts playing and suddenly you're remembering him all over again. You try to focus on work, your friends, or your daily routine, but somehow your mind keeps drifting back to him. It can even become frustrating because you don't want to think about him this much, yet you still do. Then the questions begin. Am I overthinking this? Does he ever think about me? Is he just living his life while I'm stuck here? Those questions are completely normal. They don't automatically mean he feels exactly the same. But when two people shared something meaningful, it's common for memories and emotions to stay active for both of them. Real connections often leave lasting impressions. They don't disappear overnight. So before you push these thoughts away again, stay with me. What you're about to hear may completely change the way you look at this situation. Keep watching because the next few minutes could help you understand why this person keeps returning to your mind and what that might actually say about the connection you once shared. Think about how often someone suddenly crosses your mind without any warning. It happens while you're driving, working, scrolling through your phone, or simply sitting in silence. Many people describe these moments as feeling like an invisible pull. It may not be some mysterious force, but your brain naturally holds on to people who created strong emotional memories. That's why certain faces, conversations, or moments keep replaying long after they're over. At the same time, there's also a real possibility that he occasionally remembers you as well. Maybe something reminds him of a conversation you had. Maybe he hears a familiar song or passes a place that brings your memory back. Human minds work through associations, and meaningful experiences often stay with both people involved. That doesn't guarantee he'll reach out every time you think about him, and it doesn't mean every thought is perfectly shared. Life is more complicated than that. But if the connection mattered, it isn't unusual for both of you to revisit those memories from time to time. He may suddenly wonder what you're doing. He may feel curious about how life is treating you. He might even pick up his phone before talking himself out of sending a message. Those little moments happen more often than people admit. So instead of assuming you're the only one carrying these thoughts, remember that meaningful connections often leave traces on both sides, even when nobody says a word. And what comes next explains why those thoughts sometimes become even stronger than before. Another thing many people notice is that the more someone stays on your mind, the more you begin wondering if you're crossing theirs too. While nobody can know exactly what's happening inside another person's head, it's completely possible that he's remembering you more often than you realize. He may think about conversations that once made him smile. He may replay moments when the two of you laughed together. He could remember something you said that didn't seem important at the time, but suddenly carries more meaning now. Sometimes people only recognize the value of a connection after there's distance between them. That's part of being human. Our minds naturally revisit unfinished stories and meaningful experiences. He may even scroll through old messages or pause when your name appears somewhere unexpectedly. Maybe he wonders where you are now, who you're spending time with, or whether you ever think about him anymore. None of that guarantees a reunion, but it does show how memories can quietly return without invitation. Strong emotional experiences don't simply disappear because time passes. They often resurface when least expected. So if someone keeps appearing in your thoughts, don't immediately assume you're alone in feeling that connection. There's a good chance those shared memories still exist on his side too, even if he expresses them differently. Stay with me, because the next part reveals why distance sometimes makes certain emotions feel even stronger instead of making them disappear. Your thoughts don't simply disappear. They leave an impression on you, and that often changes the way you see the connection. When someone keeps living in your mind, you naturally start wondering if you've crossed theirs too, and many times you probably have. He may be busy with work, hanging out with friends, or focused on everyday life, and then suddenly your memory appears for no obvious reason. He pauses for a second. He remembers something you said. Maybe he smiles without expecting to. Maybe he catches himself replaying an old conversation before getting back to what he was doing. That happens more often than people admit. It isn't about magic. It's about how memories and emotions work when two people once shared something meaningful. Thoughts move back and forth because the experiences you created together don't simply disappear. One small reminder can bring everything rushing back. It's almost like an invisible game, when neither of you plan to participate, yet both of you keep finding yourselves back in the same memories. The more often you think about him, the more likely you are to notice things connected to him, and he may experience something similar from his own side. He might suddenly remember your laugh, your advice, or the way you made ordinary moments feel different. These thoughts don't always stay on the surface either. Sometimes they become deeper questions. He may quietly wonder where you are now, what you're doing, or whether you ever think about him anymore. If you've ever caught yourself asking those same questions, keep watching, because what comes next explains why certain memories become impossible to ignore. As those memories continue returning, something else can happen without either of you noticing right away. He may begin comparing new experiences with the ones he shared with you. Not because he wants to, but because our minds naturally measure new moments against meaningful old ones. He could meet someone nice and still think that something feels different. He might hear a funny comment and remember how you would have answered it. He may find himself remembering your opinions, your personality, or the little habits that once made you stand out. That's how strong memories work. They quietly become the reference point. Without asking for permission, you stop being just another person from the past. Instead, you become part of how certain moments are remembered. That's difficult to replace because emotions leave a much deeper mark than simple facts. So, if you've been wondering whether he ever thinks about you, there's a real chance the answer is yes, and perhaps more often than you imagine. Those thoughts may not always be dramatic, but they can be surprisingly meaningful. He might stop for a quiet moment and genuinely wonder how you're doing. He may replay old conversations just to hear them again in his mind. Sometimes distance makes people appreciate things they once overlooked. That's simply human nature. Stay with me, because the next part reveals something many people completely miss, and it could explain why emotions suddenly shift without any clear reason. Have you ever noticed how your mood changes the moment someone comes into your thoughts? One memory can make you smile. Another can leave you feeling emotional. A simple reminder can completely change your day. The same thing can happen on his side too. If memories of you keep returning, they may quietly affect how he feels without him fully understanding why. He could suddenly feel happier after remembering a moment you shared, or he may experience an unexplained sense that something is missing. He might become more thoughtful, more distracted, or even a little quieter than usual. Sometimes people don't recognize what's causing the change because emotions rarely announce themselves. They simply appear. That's why someone can seem distant one day and unusually cheerful the next without any obvious reason. When meaningful memories return, they bring feelings with them. He may spend more time thinking than usual, wondering why certain moments still matter. He could become more sensitive, more reflective, or find himself lost in thought during ordinary parts of the day. Friends might notice he's quieter or ask if something is bothering him. He may not even have an answer because he hasn't connected the dots himself. All he knows is that certain memories keep returning, and each one carries your face with it. If this sounds familiar, don't leave yet, because the next piece explains why reminders begin appearing almost everywhere. Once someone has made a real impact on your life, your brain starts linking everyday moments back to them without asking your permission. You hear a familiar song and instantly remember them. You pass a favorite restaurant, you smell a certain perfume, you hear a joke they would have loved. Suddenly they're back in your mind again. That's how memory works. And if he still thinks about you from time to time, similar reminders can happen to him as well. He may walk past a place you visited together and remember that day. He could notice someone wearing a similar color or style and immediately think of you. He might order food you once shared and smile at the memory without expecting it. These reminders don't appear because the universe is sending secret messages. They happen because meaningful experiences create strong mental connections. Once those connections exist, everyday life keeps activating them in unexpected ways. One reminder leads to another, and before he realizes it, he's thinking about you again. That's why people often feel like someone is everywhere after they've shared an emotional connection. The memories become woven into normal life. They quietly appear in songs, places, conversations, movies, and ordinary routines. They don't disappear overnight just because time has passed. And sometimes those reminders grow strong enough to make someone consider reaching out. That's where things become even more interesting, because the next step is often the hardest one of all. There are moments when he may genuinely feel like contacting you, but knowing what to say becomes the biggest challenge. It isn't always fear, sometimes it's uncertainty. He may unlock his phone more than once, open your conversation, think about sending a message, then close everything again. He might type a few words before deleting them because they don't feel right. He could scroll through old chats looking for a natural reason to restart the conversation. Maybe he checks your latest post just to see how you're doing before putting his phone away again. None of this guarantees that he'll actually send a message, but hesitation is incredibly common. People often replay conversations in their minds long before speaking out loud. They wonder if it's the right time. They question whether reaching out will be welcomed. They worry about saying the wrong thing or reopening emotions they aren't ready to face, so they wait, they overthink. They imagine different outcomes until the moment passes. If you've ever found yourself doing exactly the same thing, you're definitely not alone. Many connections stay quiet, not because the feelings disappeared, but because neither person knows how to take the first step. And what happens next might surprise you even more, so make sure you stay until the end. He may find himself wondering, what would I even say? Would it feel awkward? Would she even want to hear from me? What if she doesn't reply? Those questions can keep someone silent far longer than most people realize. Even when there's a genuine desire to reconnect, uncertainty often gets in the way. Instead of reaching out immediately, he may keep replaying different possibilities in his head, and every time he does, your memory returns again. That's why some people eventually send a simple message that seems completely random. Maybe it's a funny meme. Maybe it's just hey. Maybe it's a small question they could have answered themselves. The message isn't always about the topic. Sometimes it's simply an excuse to break the silence after thinking about someone for a long time. And if he hasn't contacted you yet, that doesn't automatically mean you've disappeared from his mind. It could simply mean he's still searching for the right words or waiting for a moment that feels safe. He might even rehearse conversations while driving, taking a shower, or lying awake at night. He imagines saying one thing, then pictures how you might answer. He tries different versions in his head. What if the conversation goes well? What if it becomes uncomfortable? What if you've already moved on? Those thoughts can repeat over and over until they become exhausting. The more he thinks about reaching out, the more present you become in his memories. Sometimes the hardest part isn't wanting to talk. It's figuring out how to begin after so much time has passed. If you've ever wondered whether he's thought about sending that message, there's a good chance the idea has crossed his mind more than once. Stay with me, because the next part explains why those thoughts can start affecting his everyday life in ways he doesn't even notice. Think about what happens when someone stays on your mind all day. You're working, but your attention slips away for a moment. You're spending time with friends, but your thoughts quietly drift somewhere else. You're trying to stay focused, yet certain memories keep interrupting your concentration. That experience is surprisingly common. If he's thinking about you often too, he may notice the same thing happening in his own routine. He could lose focus during work, forget small details, or catch himself staring into space without realizing it. People around him might even ask if everything is okay because he seems unusually distracted. He may not know how to answer. After all, emotions rarely come with clear explanations. Sometimes they simply show up and quietly take up space in your mind. Certain memories keep replaying while you're trying to pay attention to something completely different. It's almost like having a song stuck in your head that appears at the most unexpected moments. You don't choose it, it just happens. When someone leaves a lasting emotional impression, the mind naturally returns to that person again and again. That's why meaningful connections can feel difficult to ignore, even long after the last conversation. If you've noticed yourself struggling with the same thing, don't click away yet, because the next idea may explain why those repeated thoughts become impossible to dismiss. As those memories continue returning, he may eventually stop and ask himself an important question. Why do I keep thinking about her? That simple question can change everything, because it pushes someone to look beyond surface-level attraction and examine what they're actually feeling. Maybe at first he saw you as someone interesting. Maybe he enjoyed spending time with you but never looked too deeply at his emotions. Then, over time, your memory kept returning without invitation. Now he begins asking different questions. Does she mean more to me than I realized? Why do these memories keep showing up? Is there something unfinished here? Once someone starts exploring those thoughts honestly, they often can't go back to seeing the connection in exactly the same way. You move from being a casual memory to someone who occupies a much more meaningful place in their mind. That doesn't automatically mean he'll confess his feelings tomorrow or suddenly change everything overnight. Real life is rarely that simple. People move at different speeds and emotions take time to understand. But it can mean the connection feels different than it once did. You're no longer just another face from the past. You're someone who makes him stop, reflect, and wonder what all these thoughts actually mean. Keep watching, because the final piece brings everything together in a way most people overlook. As he keeps trying to understand those feelings, he may even look for outside perspective. He could casually mention you during a conversation with a close friend without making it obvious. He might ask what they think about a situation that reminds them of you, or quietly wonder whether you ever felt the same way. Sometimes people process emotions by talking them through instead of keeping everything inside. Other times they do the opposite. They become quieter for a while. They step back, not because the connection stopped mattering, but because they're trying to sort through everything happening in their own mind. That temporary distance can easily be misunderstood. Many people assume silence always means someone has stopped caring, when in reality, it can also mean they're thinking carefully before deciding what comes next. Reflection often looks quiet from the outside, so if someone seems a little more distant than usual, it doesn't automatically reveal what's happening inside their mind. They may simply be processing emotions in their own way. And now that we've reached this point, here's the most important thing to remember. Even if both people think about each other from time to time, that doesn't guarantee the relationship will unfold exactly the way either person hopes. Life is complicated. Timing matters. Past experiences matter. Fear matters. Every person makes choices based on many different factors. So instead of treating repeated thoughts as proof of what someone else feels, see them for what they truly are, a reminder that meaningful connections can leave lasting impressions, while the future still depends on honest communication, mutual interest, and the decisions both people choose to make. There are countless reasons why people hesitate. Timing, fear, past experiences, uncertainty, personal goals. All of those things can influence whether someone acts on their feelings, no matter how often they think about another person. But one thing is worth remembering. If a connection truly mattered to both of you, there's a good chance you're not the only one who occasionally looks back on it. He may not show it. He may not be ready to talk about it. He may still be trying to understand his own emotions before saying anything out loud. That's more common than people think. We often assume silence means nothing is happening, when in reality, many people process their thoughts privately. So what should you do with that idea? First, stop criticizing yourself every time he crosses your mind. Thinking about someone doesn't automatically mean you're weak or obsessed. It simply means they had an emotional impact on you. That's part of being human. Memories don't follow a schedule. They appear when they appear. And if you've been wondering whether your feelings are unusual, they're not. Many people experience the same thing after sharing a meaningful connection. So instead of fighting every thought, accept that emotions take time to settle. Keep watching, because the next part is probably the most important message in this entire video, and it could completely change the way you move forward. Another important thing is learning to trust your own experience without jumping to conclusions about someone else's feelings. If your instincts tell you that a connection mattered, don't dismiss that just because you're overthinking every little detail. At the same time, remember that only honest communication can truly tell you what another person feels. Intuition can point you towards something worth paying attention to, but it can't replace real conversations. That's why patience matters so much. People process emotions at different speeds. Some recognize their feelings quickly. Others need weeks or even months before they fully understand what a relationship meant to them. Everyone has a different emotional timeline shaped by their own experiences and fears. That doesn't automatically mean the connection wasn't meaningful. It simply means growth doesn't happen on the same schedule for everyone. So don't rush the story in your mind. Give people room to think. room to learn and room to decide what they truly want. While you're doing that, keep building your own life. Don't pause your happiness waiting for someone else's decision. Continue chasing your goals, enjoying your friendships, learning new things, and creating a future that excites you. Ironically, people often become their most attractive when they're fully living their own lives instead of waiting for someone else's next move. And trust me, the next thought brings everything together. The more you invest in your own happiness, the more confident and grounded you become. That confidence changes the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, and the way you respond to life. Whether this particular connection grows into something more or not, becoming the strongest version of yourself is always a win. If he does think about you again, he'll remember someone who continued growing instead of standing still. If he reaches out one day, you'll meet that moment from a place of confidence rather than desperation. And if life leads both of you down different paths, you'll still have built a life you're proud of. That's why your focus should never be placed entirely on what someone else might do next. You have far more control over your own future than you sometimes realize. Your choices matter. Your attitude matters. The way you treat yourself matters. Those are the things that shape your life every single day. So instead of constantly asking, is he thinking about me? Try asking a different question. Am I becoming the person I'm proud to be? That single shift in focus can change everything. And here's something many people discover much later. When you stop chasing certainty and start living fully, life often becomes much clearer. Don't click away yet, because these final words may be the reminder you didn't know you needed. If this person keeps crossing your mind, let that feeling remind you of the impact the connection had, but don't let it become the only thing guiding your future. Hold on to hope if it helps you, but keep your expectations balanced with reality. People surprise us. Sometimes they return, sometimes they don't. Sometimes conversations happen months later when neither person expected them. Other times, the greatest lesson is learning to move forward with gratitude instead of regret. None of those outcomes reduce the value of what you felt. Real moments still matter, even if they don't unfold exactly the way we imagined. So be patient with yourself. Give your emotions the kindness they deserve. Trust your ability to recognize meaningful experiences, but also trust that your future depends on much more than one person's next decision. If the connection is meant to continue, it will take shape through honesty, mutual effort, and shared choices, not through guessing alone. Until then, keep becoming someone you genuinely enjoy being. That version of you is worth discovering, no matter what happens next. And if today's message gave you a new perspective, stay with us, because the next video might answer the question you've been asking yourself all along.